Hey, good morning, mamas. It's 9 a.m. Central on Wednesday, June 11th, because yesterday was my husband's birthday. There we go. Got it. June 11th. And we're just going to jump into this. I often have questions or concerns or comments about apple cider vinegar in this group. It's always been kind of a topic out there because so many different doctors or health gurus encourage it and talk about it and post about it. But then there's always this little low-level concern that's going on with some people or things they've heard or headlines they've seen or whatever. And so we're going to unpack this. I've got my stack of books to share with you. Especially if you own these books, that way you can refer back to them later because I really want you doing your own reading and research. Please don't just take it from me. Please don't just don't take my word for it, anybody else's word for it. You really do need to be doing a little bit of your own reading and research and verifying to make sure it's something that's going to work for you or not, or that you want to do, all those things. So good morning. I hope I can see your comments. I see that Miss Becky and Miss Debbie are here and some other mamas. I hope I can see your comments because if you ask a question and I see it, I'm going to try to answer it. But I do have a bunch of notes to share with you. And I'll just tell you, sometimes Facebook doesn't show me your comments. And I still don't know why, because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. So, but we're going to talk about apple cider vinegar in particular, although, good morning, Jeannie. There you go, Becky. Good morning. I can see that at least. That's a good start. What I'm going to talk to you about could apply to really any vinegar, kinda. Apple cider vinegar is a little special, I would say, for two reasons. One, it kind of tastes good. Yes, it's vinegar, but it does have a more pleasant taste to many people. And it's fermented, okay? It is fermented. And if you use apple cider vinegar, you want to get the ones that have the mother in it. And it's like this floaty, stringy stuff, because that's the good stuff. We want that in there to have that extra ferment. Now, that doesn't mean that a vinegar that doesn't have that mother in it of any sort isn't a beneficial thing to include in your diet. But it's kind of like with pickles. You can just get pickles, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that as long as they're not sugary bread and butter pickles. Or you can get fermented pickles, and that's just going that extra step to get a little bit more goodness out of it. It's the same idea. So apple cider vinegar, though, is what I'm going to talk about specifically here, because that's the one that gets purported for different health benefits and things like that. So it's just fermented vinegar made from apples. That's what it is. And some of the suggestions and ideas out there for including it as a regular part of your regimen includes blood glucose management, better blood glucose management, we used to say blood sugar. Really, the correct term is blood glucose, okay? But that's what I'm talking about there. Better numbers that way, better numbers throughout the day as well as in the morning, because a lot of mamas struggle with their blood glucose being too high in the morning, and so apple cider vinegar has been proposed as a way to help with that. It's also been proposed as a way to kind of help with appetite control. Part of that can just be literally from, you drink a big glass of water with some vinegar in it, and it kind of makes you realize, oh, I wasn't actually hungry, I'm just dehydrated, or I'm thirsty, or that did the trick, or whatever. But it also has been suggested, and I'm using my words, I'm trying to be careful, and I'll tell you why in a minute, that, good morning, ladies, that apple cider vinegar slows down digestion a little bit, slows down stomach emptying a little bit. Now, any of us who have ever used apple cider vinegar regularly know that it doesn't slow it down like to be a problem, okay? So don't get worried when you hear that slow down. that's also what your natural GLP-1 hormone does when it's working properly. It's a natural slowdown, okay? So that can help with all kinds of things. And then, of course, when you're talking about fermented apple cider vinegar, it's really good for your gut health and inflammation and all the things. So those are some of the reasons. More recently, yes, Angel, that was exactly what I was fixing to say. Oh my gosh, that gave me goosebumps. It's like you read my mind, or I read your mind. More recently, I have heard about it from Dr. Berg, and one of my mod mamas shared one of his like Instagram stories or video. I don't know what it was. Anyway, and I think that got shared in here. I will tell you, later today, I'm going to share a few things with you for your research, for your learning about apple cider vinegar. I will try to find Dr. Berg's video. I think I can find that. It's real short. It's like 6 minutes or less. I'm going to also share a couple of, I believe it's called Healthline little summaries. And those link back to studies and different kinds of things. I'm going to share a few things like that with you later today when I get an opportunity. But one of the things, like Angel said, that I learned or heard from Dr. Berg recently was how it can help with sleep when taken right before bedtime. And you heard it from me. Well, I heard it from Dr. Berg. So I'm going to share that. And I'll be honest with you, I have not researched that aspect of apple cider vinegar helping with sleep beyond Dr. Berg saying that. But I did start using it a little differently because of that, just to see. Okay, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So possibly it helps with sleep. Okay, possibly so. So there's some different reasons why people might use it or include it throughout their day or whatever. Okay, now when and how much? Well, that depends on what you're using it for. Now, overall, generally speaking, everything I've ever read from lots of different sources and people, they generally say, no more than 2 tablespoons max. Often I see that through the day, but certainly at one whack, 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is all you need, and that's all you want to do. I personally, I've seen several different things I'll share with you in a minute where it seems like 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar is enough to have a very demonstrative impact, but 2 tablespoons is what I have heard some people suggest. Dr. Berg is one, Dr. Bickman is one, for when you're going to have it maybe in the evening, okay? So there's a little bit of some leeway there, but ain't nobody telling anybody to have a half a cup of vinegar a day or a cup of vinegar a day. Absolutely not. That is far too much for lots of different reasons. And furthermore, let's pretend that a half a cup a day or a cup a day of apple cider vinegar had no detrimental effects, although I think it does, and I'll share that. But let's pretend it doesn't. There's also this idea of minimum effective dose. There's no reason to do more of something when less will do all you need it to do. That's true of anything. Minimum effective dose, 1 to 2 tablespoons. And I have also seen lots of different experts, lots of different people say, like with anything, mamas, I know we think that if it's a whole food or natural, we can just jump right into it. No, if you're doing something new, I don't care what it is. If you're doing something new, start with 1 teaspoon. Literally start with a teaspoon. You don't need to jump to the full dose or the full amount that someone else is doing. Start with 1 teaspoon. And I say that because in my coaching, I do really focus on anti-inflammatory. That is a big part of my coaching, is anti-inflammatory. And because of that, over the years, I've had a lot of ladies come into my coaching who obviously struggle with inflammation, but they often struggle because they have autoimmune, or they have a lot of food intolerances or food allergies that cause a lot of weird inflammation in various forms. It's not just about joint pain, y'all. And because of that, I do have a lot of ladies in this group and in my coaching groups who have histamine intolerances or histamine issues. And so chances are, if you're one of those mamas, you probably aren't able to do apple cider vinegar anyway. But just like anything else, there's a whole range of histamine intolerance of like what you might be able to handle, and you really want the health benefits all the way to no way, Jose. And so if that's you, or if you're not sure what I'm even talking about there, but you're someone who struggles with being able to fully enjoy some of the healthy foods other people can't seem to be able to fully enjoy. If you struggle with that, if you struggle with maybe it's gut issues for you, could be hives or rashes or fatigue, but it could be just gut issues or whatever, where you're not really allergic, but you seem to have trouble with new things or whatever, then please start small, especially if that's you. Please start small, and you might be able to enjoy 1 teaspoon a day and work up or not, okay? And I think about that because one of my dear friends has histamine intolerance, and she so desperately wants kefir to be a part of her life. Just kefir, like that's the one thing she wants because of the gut benefits and the mood and anxiety benefits as well, the serotonin benefits. And so she has had to start small. We're talking like a little half teaspoon and work up. And she can't have it every day. And so just keep that in mind. Start small anytime you're starting something new. And we're looking for the minimum effective dose. That's what we're looking for. Now, when might you use apple cider vinegar if you choose to use it? Well, it sort of depends on those things I mentioned earlier as to what kind of benefits are most important to you. Now, Dr. Bickman, in his book, Why We Get Sick, this came out in early 2020. It doesn't have anything to do with you know what. Even though it looks like it might be a virus or something, it isn't. It's all about insulin resistance and inflammation as well. So if you really want to know about insulin resistance from an expert, he's your guy, world-renowned metabolic scientist and doctor. He talks about apple cider vinegar in particular on page 188 of his book, okay? And he does mention just a tablespoon or so before a meal, if you want to do that has a meal that has a lot of starchy or sugary carbs. And yes, I'm talking about healthy whole food carbs, okay? Because healthy whole food carbs impacts our blood sugar levels, our blood glucose levels, and our insulin. It just does. And that doesn't have to be bad, but we need to be aware of that, okay? So he does talk about that on page 188, but he also mentions that, you know, if you have some apple cider vinegar at night before bed, it can help with your morning blood glucose numbers, which is very important so that you can start your day well and not in the hole and not having a roller coaster all day long. So, and he doesn't mention sleep, but I have, like I said, Angel and I have heard that from Dr. Berg a bit, and I feel like that has definitely helped me. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about is how to have this across the board. I ain't seeing nobody say take 2 tablespoons in a shot glass and down it. I'm not seeing that. So I don't recommend that. That's not good. That can really burn your esophagus after so long of regularly doing that. I mean, one thing is not, hey, Miss Vanessa. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and you're going to put it into a big old glass of water, okay? Dilute it as much as you want to dilute it, okay? Now, here's the thing though. You do want to consume it in a reasonable amount of time. We're not trying to string it out all day long because we're really wanting to get these health benefits of better glucose management, possibly better sleep support for sure, helping control our appetite, all those kinds of things. We want to do this in a more timely manner. So, you know, like we're talking 20, 30 minutes, just like you would drink a glass of water. okay? Like if you're like dehydrated, thirsty, you want to get this consumed in a timely manner and not just strung out all day so that you get the full benefit and impact of what apple cider vinegar can do for your blood glucose, okay? And all those other wonderful health benefits. So glass of water, as much water as you need to put there, 1 to 2 tablespoons, but start small, start with a teaspoon. That's fine, still dilute it. And you're gonna drink it through a straw, okay? That's just an extra measure to make sure we're taking good care of our teeth enamel, because it is acetic acid, okay? It is. And so you want to drink that through a straw. And we're going to talk about some of the concerns and dangers here in just a second, okay? So, glass of water, 1 to 2 tablespoons, with a straw. And as far as when, it depends on what you're wanting to do. So if you are including moderate amounts of carbs in your meals, okay? And I'm talking healthy carbs. If you're including, say at lunch, you have a half a sweet potato with your lunch, or you have an apple with your lunch, or at dinner, you have some golden potatoes with dinner, or whatever, some beans. Maybe you're having a big pot of chili and it's got a lot of beans in it, whatever it is. If you're having a meal that has a moderate amount of carbs in it, and I this is true for high amounts of carbs too, but I hope nobody's having high amounts of carbs. I hope not. For your insulin and your inflammation too, but especially for your insulin. We don't want to have high amounts of carbs, but if you're having some moderate amounts, like a very small sweet potato, or a half a sweet potato, or an apple, or like maybe a fruit cup at the end of your lunch or dinner that's got like, some sliced apples and bananas and mandarin oranges, and it's a little bitty fruit cup, and it's like your dessert, whatever, okay? If you're having those moderate amounts of carbs towards the end of your meal, hopefully, or at least, edging that way to close out your meal, having your vinegar diluted in water through a straw before that meal is ideal for your blood glucose management. The Glucose Goddess talks about that extensively, more than anybody I've ever seen explain it, in her Glucose Revolution book. Now this is her first book. This is not the glucose method, which includes, which doesn't go deep into the science. It's more of an overview of her hacks that she talks about. And it does include all the hacks. It talks about her hacks, and it has some beautiful, simple, gorgeous recipes, like with pictures and all the things for 4 of the hacks. This is her first book where she goes deep into the science. And so if you have Glucose Revolution by the Glucose Goddess, she begins talking about apple cider vinegar generally, but specifically apple cider vinegar on page 157, 158 of that book. So just jot that down so you can go back and review that if you have this book. This is a fantastic book, and she gives plenty of credit to those who have done the research, who have done the studies and the labs and all that. She's brought it together in a way that is fairly easy for us lay people to understand, and put it into these different hacks to help you manage your blood glucose. And specifically, her goal is that you get to eat pretty freely. She's not here to tell you to never have chocolate cake. She's not here to tell you to not have carbs. That's not her mission at all. Her mission is to help you eat as freely as you want to eat, while also managing your blood glucose levels and doing a lot of good things for your health. And I appreciate that, actually. I mean, she is a scientist, okay? She is a scientist, and I appreciate that she's not trying to lay out a health plan. She's not a health coach, nothing like that. She's just like, look, she's like, this is her. She's like, look, I'm eating chocolate cake. Here's how I'm going to do it and not damage my health as bad. And you know what? Sometimes we need that, right? I love her hacks and tools. She's really speaking to a specific audience. I think who wants to be able to enjoy a piece of cake from the local bakery that's so good, but yet still have some control over how their blood glucose is going and how their health is going, how it makes them feel. And it's not that she wants you to eat healthy. It's not that. She has lots of healthy recipes, and she talks about a lot of different healthy things to do, for sure, whole foods all the way. But I think she also understands that people are gonna people are gonna eat and do some things, and so this is a great way to start learning how to take control of the effects that certain types of food are gonna have. So on page 157, 158, she really starts going into the mechanisms behind why apple cider vinegar does what it does. It's fascinating. And so I know several of you were asking about, well, how does it even do that? How does apple cider vinegar even affect this, that, and the other? Okay. So, one of the things, I'm going to read a couple of things to you from her book in this section here. What they have found is that when you consume apple cider vinegar diluted through a straw before your carbiest meal or before your chocolate cake, like let's say it's your birthday and you're like, I want that bakery's chocolate cake. I want a piece of that. And so, but you want to be smart about it. You want to be a smart mama. What they have found is that you can reduce the glucose spike by up to 30%. That is significant. Just from that one tool of using. And there's other things you can do, like moving afterwards, having a vegetizer before. There's other things you can do to even more greatly impact that. But just this one tool of having some diluted vinegar through a straw, I'm gonna keep saying that, 1 to 2 tablespoons. 1 tablespoon is enough for before the meal, okay, in the water. You can bring that glucose spike reduced by 30%. Now, why or how does that happen? And so what she talks about is that the amount of insulin is decreased when vinegar is consumed before eating. So up to 20% less insulin is released when vinegar is consumed before eating. And insulin's a good thing. We want it to work, and we want it to work well, but we also don't want it to overwork, okay? We don't want it to overwork. We want it to work just right, okay? So this is what she says. This tells us that drinking vinegar doesn't flatten a glucose curve by increasing the amount of insulin in the body. So if you increase the amount of insulin that's in the body, like some type 2 diabetics even get insulin in order to bring the glucose down, but that exactly leads to even more pronounced insulin resistance when you do that. And that can eventually, like my father-in-law, lead to type 3 diabetes, which he's totally insulin dependent, even though he's not a type 1 diabetic, okay? So you can flatten it that way. But what happens is let me make sure I get this right. This is because the more insulin there is in the body, the more that your body is having to work to remove the excess glucose. We know that to get it stored away. However, although insulin brings glucose levels down, when that happens, inflammation can go up and weight gain can go up, okay? When it's getting to be too much, too often, all the time. And so what we really want to do is flatten the glucose curve without having to increase the amount of insulin, okay? And that is what vinegar does. And then she has some wonderful, she's known for her little, you're not going to be able to totally see this very well, but she's known for her little comparison charts and graphs and things like that. She goes into that, okay? Then she talks about how the vinegar works to do that, okay? And she talks about that the acetic acid that's in vinegar temporarily inactivates this fancy word, alpha amylase. And you're like, what is that? I know, it's crazy. But what it does is the acetic acid in vinegar temporarily inactivates this alpha amylase. And what happens then is that sugar and starch are turned into glucose more slowly. Okay, so that glucose hits your bloodstream more softly or slowly. So it's not such a harsh spike. Okay, so if all of that is like, what did Mama Fox just say? It's on page 161 of the Glucose Goddess Revolution book, where she goes into that. And then the other part of that is, once the acetic acid in the vinegar hits your bloodstream, it penetrates your muscles. But this is a good thing, because then it encourages your muscles to make glycogen faster than it usually would, which leads to more uptake of glucose. Because we hear a lot about muscles. We hear that we need to build muscle. And again, we really have to work for that as we get older, because it gets harder. Okay? Our muscles don't work quite as well. And so we know that muscle is so important for glucose management, because the muscles will take up that glucose out of the bloodstream and get it out of the bloodstream. That's so, so important. And so what this acetic acid from the vinegar does is it gets those muscles to make glycogen so that, a little faster, it makes it anyway, but it makes it faster so that we can get that the glucose out of the bloodstream and into the muscles. Okay, so glucose being released into the body more slowly and your muscles uptaking the glucose more quickly means that there is less of a spike. That is what's going on there. It's very sciencey, but there you go. That's why it's important for your blood glucose. So when to use this hack is especially before a meal that is going to include starchy or sugary carbs. Now, if your meal doesn't really have any big amount of starchy or sugary carbs, then you don't really need to do this hack at that time. There's no reason to. An example of that would be, let's say for breakfast, I'm going to make something up. Let's say for breakfast, you're going to have bacon and eggs and maybe, I don't know, some leftover broccoli and maybe some sauteed onions and mushrooms. I don't know. There's nothing starchy or sugary there to worry about. So you wouldn't need to do it then. I mean, you could, but you don't need to. Save it for when you need it, okay? But let's say for lunch, like I mentioned, let's say you're going to have a chicken salad, and maybe you're going to cut up some apple in that chicken salad. Or maybe you're going to put a few grapes in that chicken salad, a handful of grapes cut up. I don't know. Or maybe you're going to have a chicken salad and have your apple at the end of that meal, which is a really great second hack. Well, then that would be a great meal to have the vinegar before. But I'm going to tell you right now, because I tell you what I do and don't do. And I will tell you, I sometimes forget to do the vinegar before my carby meal, or my meal that has carbs. I do sometimes forget to do it before. So guess what? I do it after, because that's better than nothing. Okay? About half the time, I remember to do it after. And so I do it after. I do like to use the vinegar before tool for when I go out to eat. And I don't always remember it, but that is one I really like to use. And when I go out to eat, I almost always choose lower carb type meals. I'm not eating hamburger buns. I'm not eating tortilla chips when I go out. I'm not eating from the bread basket. I'm not getting rice with my meal. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But, and so I do try to make lower carb choices when I go out to eat. However, I know that the dressings and the sauces and the oils and all that stuff when I go out to eat, I don't have as much control over, but I also don't want to sweat it, because I really love to go out to eat. I just do, y'all. And I just enjoy it. And it's just something that's like my love language. So I will have my diluted vinegar. I will drink it on the way to the restaurant. I'll drink it in the car on the way to the restaurant. That is probably my favorite way to use it because like I said, even if I make my best choices and I get like this beautiful entree salad with all these wonderful veggies and greens and this, you know, non-breaded grilled chicken, it's still not going to be pristine. It's just not. And so I love using that hack for that reason. And then my other one is, let's say I've got a day, like most days, where I'm, you know, eating everything at home and I have control over what I eat in this home. And I try to make really good food choices at the grocery store and not bring in junk oils and junk stuff. So at home, I'm not worried about that. And maybe I'm not really going to have any substantial amount of sugary or starchy carbs that day. Maybe I'm not having beans or a sweet potato or a piece of fruit. Maybe I'm just having berries, which are much more gentle to your blood glucose. Maybe it's one of those days where I'm just not having like substantial amounts of carbs, because there's days like that. Some days I do, some days I don't. Never at breakfast. Never at breakfast. No more of that. But if it's a day like that, then what I've started doing, thanks to Dr. Berg, is, and Dr. Bickman, quite frankly, he talks about having the apple cider vinegar at night as well. I have been having my 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in the evening in a glass of water with a straw, and I do really feel like it has improved my sleep. I don't know, but I've been sleeping great, and I'm 51. And we all know things can go sideways. But that's been great. I've really enjoyed that, and I know it's good for me. Now, let's talk about some of the potential dangers that you hear about. And, you know, I am not a doctor, and even if I was a doctor, I am not your doctor. So you got to talk to your doctor and make your decisions. But I'm going to tell you, when I go and research this and look it up and do the little rabbit trails, the things I'm seeing that are against using apple cider vinegar is, Susan, I'm going to tell you, several of my mod mamas have been doing the apple cider vinegar at night, and we have all been like, we've been sleeping good. So, I mean, we're doing some other things, you know, just generally, but we have been sleeping really good. But what I see when I see these like possible negative things, like, oh, it makes reflux worse, or oh, it hurts your teeth, or oh, bone, you know, osteoporosis, bone loss. When I see that, there's a couple of things. As far as teeth goes, well, dilute it, for heaven's sake, drink it through a straw. And soft drinks, colas, are way worse, because those rarely get drank through a straw. Okay, I mean, like rarely. People are drinking those like 2 cans a day, or if not more. And that is way worse because of the volume and the fact that straws are never used, not to mention the sugar, but we're not even going to talk about that part of it. But people even swish it around in their mouth. They'll swish a cola around in their mouth, you know, let it hang there. We're not letting the vinegar hang there, ladies. We're drinking it through a straw diluted, and it's going to go on down. It's not going to hang out in our mouth. Okay. But as far as the teeth enamel, literally one of the websites I looked at said there was one study, one study that had been done specifically on this. And let me tell you what they did. They took 4 wisdom teeth and immersed it in apple cider vinegar, completely immersed, for 4 hours. We're not doing that, okay? Not only that, the effect was 1% to max of 20% loss of minerals. So it really wasn't that much immersed for 4 hours in vinegar, apple cider vinegar, but like some of it, the range was 1 or 2%. Okay, so I think we're okay. I think you can rest easy. You're going to dilute it. You're going to drink it through a straw. As far as any issues with, what was it? Like, potassium, diminished potassium or bone loss. There have been 0 studies done on that. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be, but there's been 0 studies done on that. And there was one case study of one person that was reported. And this 28-year-old, yes, she did have loss of potassium, loss of bone loss, because she drank a cup a day of apple cider vinegar for 6 years. That's not what we're doing, okay? We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Then, as far as overly delayed stomach emptying, like to, an extreme, kind of like some of the Ozempic effects we hear about nowadays, you want the stomach, you want your food to not go through too fast, because you want your body to be able to get all the good stuff out of your food and all that kind of stuff and help you stay full and all those kinds of things. But there was one study that looked at delayed stomach emptying, one study on 10 people. I'm laughing because it's like, this is the headlines. We see the headline, but we don't see what was behind it. One study on 10 people. Those 10 people were type 1 diabetics who also already had gastroparesis. That's a very specific 10 people. They were type 1 diabetics with gastroparesis, and they were given some vinegar for like a bit. I forget even how long. I kind of quit looking after I saw that. But yes, it did delay their stomach emptying a little bit more than just water. Okay, so I think we're good with that. Now, the one subset of people that might need to be concerned, and you need to do your own research or your own, try it on yourself, N of one, are those who have severe acid reflux. If you have mild acid reflux, it may actually help you to have some daily apple cider vinegar. I have seen ladies and men, actually, now that I think about it, I have seen people just completely heal that with apple cider vinegar. However, if you have severe reflux, it could make it worse. It kind of depends on the person. It depends upon, are you taking meds for that already? I did note that some of the meds that are often prescribed for acid reflux, they end up over time reducing your stomach acid to too low of levels, which is, you want some acid in your stomach. It's supposed to be there. So you don't want it to go too low, but then if it goes too low because you're taking this med and then you add in the vinegar, that can create, that can help some people, or it can create problems for others. So that would be the one category of people and situations where it's going to depend on your level of acid reflux, and it's going to depend on your med, if you're taking one, and how you want to handle that. And that is the one, not sure. However, guess how many studies have been done on acid reflux in apple cider vinegar? Guess how many studies have been done on using apple cider vinegar to treat acid reflux? 0. Because why would they? Because apple cider vinegar is cheap and it doesn't make the pharmaceutical company any money. So why would studies be done on that, right? But 0 studies have been done, at least as far as I could tell, on if apple cider vinegar actually does help with like heartburn and acid reflux. So we don't really know a lot about that, but that would be the one caution, is for that subset of people, okay? Now, at the end of the day, though, I consider apple cider vinegar, I actually really consider it a supplement because of how I use it. Like, I'm not using it in my salad dressing. I just don't like that. I mean, you can. I don't like apple cider vinegar in my salad dressing or whatever. So I'm not really using it as a food. I personally use it as a supplement. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to come live here and share with you the supplements I have used and what I am now using and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to share with you that, but I personally consider it as a supplement. And so you don't have to do it. You really don't have to do it to be healthy. You don't have to use apple cider vinegar if you don't like it. If you don't like it, if you don't want it, or if you're concerned and you're just not sure, or maybe, some people do have teeth or enamel issues, they've had a history of that, then maybe you shouldn't, especially if it's going to make you worry. I mean, if anything, I'm serious, Maybe it won't make your teeth enamel issues worse, but if it's going to make you concerned, then don't do it. You don't have to do it. Yes, I like rice vinegar too, Linda. I really do. Thanks to Mod Mama Lisa, who got me turned on to that a few years ago. But to me, it's a supplement, and it's a great one, I think, for lots of different reasons. Blood glucose management, for sure. Possibly sleep management. Y'all try that if you're up for it. So yeah, on the days when so let me tell you this. This is just me, because I do want to I want to have a level of moderation. So if I have had my apple cider vinegar before a meal, because either I thought it was going to be a little carby or sugary or whatever, or it was, if I've had it before a meal, I don't have it again at night for bedtime sleep. I don't. Personally. I mean, that might be okay, but like I said, everything I've read from everyone, and I should say Good Energy, also she talks about it on page 182. But everything I've read says 1 to 2 tablespoons a day. So, and again, ideally taken in one whack for the best effect on your blood glucose, and use it as a tool as needed. And if you don't need it for blood glucose management because you didn't really have anything super carby, super sugary, super starchy, whatever you want to call that, then you could try it at night. But I don't think it's wise, personally. I would not advise personally having it both times. I would just pick one and I switch it. It just depends. I use it as a tool as needed to help me with my day and to help me with my levels and whatever's going on that day. So I hope that helps. You can ask more questions in our group about it, but later today, in case you didn't notice, I don't have on a t-shirt. I'm going somewhere with one of my daughters. Well, I'm going to just tell you, we're going to Hobby Lobby. We're going to Hobby Lobby. I have one of my daughters, she loves to do little miniatures, like little miniature. She doesn't do like a full-on dollhouse, but she'll do these little miniature scenes. So she's going to make us a USA patriotic miniature scene for me to sit in my foyer. It's so cute. We're going to go to Hobby Lobby and pick that stuff out today. So anyway, all that to say, it'll be a little while before I can drop these links to you so you can do some more research and things like that. And Carrie says it helps her sleep better too. Yes. Okay. Carrie, that is what I've seen as well. So, it's so funny. Like when I turned 51 in January, it was like, okay, what's the next thing that's going to happen? And so the next thing that happened was I started having some temperature regulation issues at night. I started having some temperature regulation issues for the first time. Now, I had already moved to like the whole it's warm at night, but not like just like generally. My husband, who I think he's a colon cancer survivor. And so my husband, ever since he had chemo as well as radiation 16, 17 years ago, he cannot tolerate being cold because something about whatever he did, like he couldn't even drink water from the faucet that winter because it felt like knives in his mouth and throat when it was cold, just from the faucet. Anyway, his cold tolerance is zilcho. So here he is, and it's, 80 degrees at night outside, and he's got an Afghan on his side of the bed. Now, he's been doing that for years. I do not have an Afghan on top of my cover on my side of the bed. So I've been doing that for years too. No way, Jose. Got the fan on and all the things. We turned the temp down at night and all the things. But when I turned 51, Carrie, I started having some temperature regulation issues at night, especially in the middle of the night. And so that was like, well, that's interesting. That's a new thing to get to experience. And it was very interesting. Not night sweats, just hot flashes. And so, but when I started doing the vinegar at night, yes, I haven't had an issue in months, not months, which of course, when you don't, you sleep better. You totally sleep so much better. Now, I'm always one my entire life, even when I was 4 and 5 years old. I mean, little. I always wake up one time during the night. Always. I just do. And I almost always need to go tinkle. And I know that it's been since I was a little girl because I remember having to, where my bedroom was, and then there was this long, dark hallway, to get to the bathroom. I still, not fun when you're a little girl and you're like, you got to go tinkle in the middle of the night down that long, dark hallway, but you can't turn on all the lights. But I've always done that. And so I know some people will say, well, I never sleep all the way through the night. I always wake up. That's not a problem. I actually was listening to a podcast very recently, and the guy interviewing was talking about sleep and all the things, and circadian rhythm. It was fascinating. And he's like, if waking up once in the night and being awake for 10, 15 minutes because you need to go to the bathroom, he's like, that's not a problem. That is not going to be an issue. It's not a problem. It's when you stay awake for an hour or two. That's a problem. That is a problem, indeed. But yes, I will say, so Carrie and I are sleeping much more coolly, much cooler these days, and Angel's sleeping good too. So definitely try it in the evening. And again, start small. Start with a teaspoon if you're not used to doing it, and work your way up. Dilute it with a straw. And just see, because that's been my experience too. And I'm like, well, I'm all for that. That's an easy, cheap supplement. Helps me get in another glass of hydration. And when I say at night before bed, I mean, it could be an hour or two before bed. I know some people really struggle with drinking something right up against bedtime because of having to go tinkle. But, and I do try to be careful about that, but at the same time, I'm going to have to get up and go tinkle no matter what. So I don't think the extra glass is going to matter. And I used to do like a hot tea or something at night anyway, so I've just swapped it for this. Instead, of course, we don't want to heat it. Don't heat your apple cider vinegar. That ruins all the good gut stuff in there, all the good gut health stuff. So don't heat it. And things like that. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I will share some things with you later today when I get back from the Hobby Lobby with my Sophie to get her miniature stuff. And if you are in the Foxy Foundation summer group, I am going live in there in 10 minutes. And so some of you, I will see you over there in the Foxy Foundation coaching group. All right, thanks for hanging out with me, ladies. I'm glad I could see some of your things. Some of it went too fast. But feel free, if I didn't answer your question, feel free to drop it into our group. But look for those things I'm going to share with you later today so that you can learn a little bit more about this great topic. All right, bye ladies. Bye Esther.